Anatoly, welcome to Mint. This is our second interview. Last interview we did, it was with Blondish. It was about a year ago or so. We were drinking. Oh, you're drinking now. What are you drinking, actually?
Hop water. Has no
Okay.
alcohol. Kind of tastes like a Lagunitas.
Nice.
But it's awesome because it's alcohol, not alcoholic.
Dude, I'm excited to have you on. Part of season 6, all about blockchain data, specifically demystifying blockchain data for Web3 native creators. Okay, so had to bring you on considering all the excitement happening on Solana. So I think a good place to start, Anatoly, is what is the current landscape of the creator economy on Solana today?
Yeah, if you've been paying attention and I've looked at like the reports published by Messari or Nansen, you can see that basically, despite everything else in the world like going to shit, NFTs are still growing like crazy, and a lot of users are onboarding to them and a lot of creators. And there's days that we see 200,000 NFTs minted in one day. You know, there's over 17 million have been minted on chain right now. So it's kind of I think like I started thinking about it from a very high level, and I think in a world where there's like these sets with artificial scarcity, they're not really scarce in the sense that there's so many clones and so many NFTs that it's not scarce from a very high level. But what's actually scarce is creativity. So it's very much a creativity driven economy. It's people that figure out that like connection between community and culture and like the art and the brand and everything else, and able to capture it. And those are the ones that are succeeding. And instead of like, you know, the Instagram or TikTok algorithm that's surfacing things, it's an open free for all market. And that's kind of pretty cool and exciting and really new. I think really new for the web, really new for digital content.
You know, before NFTs blew up, it was very much like DeFi centric. And I think the creator economy, like with the entering of NFTs, all these PFP communities, music NFTs, etc., it brought a lot of culture, a lot of color, I guess, to crypto. What would you say is like the creator's role in Web3 in general?
This is tough because it's I think I kind of look at it as like there's like very different ways that all these things can play out. Some of it is just purely art, especially the one-on-one stuff. It's just an artist building digital content and trying to do cool things. Some of it is brands. Like I think trying to build a brand in a similar way that Hello Kitty's a brand or Lion Friends or whatever. And some of them are stories, which I think is kind of like almost like Marvel. Like I imagine like the next version of Marvel is going to come from some of these like NFT projects. Like where else would you be trying to build it, right? You're not going to do it anywhere else. But
Right.
I think so. I think the art, like the stuff that I think happens and like succeeds is when the artist has some intent to like either go after one of those, you know, with some focus. Like either they are building purely art, one-on-one pieces and building themselves up as an artist, or have some intent of building a brand or a story around it and kind of taking it from there.
What are some things you think like creator-based projects in crypto are doing right that I guess other like Web2 brands are doing wrong? Like creative brands.
Yeah. Well, I think what's clear is that like there's a lot more opportunity for a very long tail in crypto right now. I don't know if that's going to change in like the you know, in the future, but like right now there's a lot of smaller artists who are able to enter and have like small successes.
Mm-hmm.
But those are meaningful, like life-changing amounts for that artist. Like it's very rare for an artist to make like 50K, right? Really rare. But we see that, I see those stories like over and over. And that I think to me is like what Web3 is doing well. It's able to connect artists to small communities that can appreciate them without any middlemen. And then that is able to actually capture value. and like for that artist and for that community. So I think Web2 has done a really bad job of that. Like you look at Spotify or Instagram or TikTok, probably TikTok is the most small artist friendly, where you can see unknown names kind of get famous. But like all the big ones, like it's really, really hard to compete there as with a small following, right? Like how many listens do you need on Spotify to buy a sandwich?
Right. Too many, way too many. You know what's crazy? You're seeing a smaller subset of people creating even more value than those that are kind of generated through streams, for example.
Yeah.
I think RAC tweeted this a while ago, where he's like, I think 130 people generated the same amount of value that 9 million people generated through streaming on Spotify, right? Yeah. And when you talk about building like a creator economy that's either user owned or direct to the fan, you're starting to see these like direct to fan relationships emerging in Web3, bringing the primitive for that. But I'm curious from your point of view, like why are crypto networks like the ultimate infrastructure for that? Like why are they such a great primitive for connecting creators and fans together?
So the business model is just totally different in Web3. Like Web2 is built upon the ad exchange. So the goal of a platform that's backed by an ad exchange is to maximize eyeballs. And the way that they've optimized that is they get the biggest influential brand that can, or content creator to generate as many views as they can. And then they steal everyone else's data and then serve them ads that they don't want, right? And that's a model that has scaled Instagram, Facebook, all these platforms. And for them, the long tail doesn't really generate as much because the number of eyeballs is just not big enough. So it's very hard for them to actually scale up what they want to do. It's very much, to me, it seems almost like closer to broadcast TV, where you're trying to get the biggest audience, right, for your Saturday night show or whatever, right? And that's just like you want the biggest stars there all the time because that's the most generic kind of widest distribution content you can get. I think TikTok has changed that somewhat a bit because the algorithm is so good and it's able to generate content directly to the user, much better than I think the news feed has. But I think crypto goes one step further, is that there is no platform in the middle. There's many platforms. There's Magic Eden and a dozen other competitors. And the relationship between the artist and the fan doesn't go through Magic Eden. It's direct, right? I have this NFT set. I'm part of that NFT community. Every NFT set that I've seen that has gotten any traction, all those folks have built their own marketplaces and tools and things like that and continue function. Despite Magic Eden being so dominant, there is still like no way for them to really control anything, to be always in the middle. So I think I guess that's the permissionless nature of crypto, and the way the business models work in crypto is you can't really build a moat and everything is direct and peer-to-peer at the end of the day.
So do you think creators should be spending more time building towards virality or building towards a smaller collector base, for example?
This is really up to that creator.
Okay.
I think this is almost like, what kind of art do you want to make or whatever, okay, right? Do you want to make something that is more consumable, right, and poppy, or something more niche? It's got to come from the soul of that person. And I can't say one is better than the other because I enjoy both, right? Like I'm an enjoyer of both kinds of content. I think both can work. And I don't think there is, I think there's plenty of success in both. Like it's really, really hard to predict because I think like CryptoPunks is very niche, right? Those pixelated photos were really like very targeted, like, especially in those early days, you couldn't really like predict, okay, this is going to be almost like the icon for NFTs, right? But they hit that right combination of like appeal to a very niche community that was able to grow and kind of become this really massive brand. So I don't know, like it's got to come from the soul.
Yeah. So things that come from the soul, you need a set of tools to create things that come from the soul. And I want to quickly highlight some of like the creator tool stacks that exist on Solana. So the most obvious one is of course Magic Eden, right? As like the premier marketplace. But what are other tools that creators can tap into that otherwise may not be as familiar, for example?
Yeah, there's other marketplaces. So Exchange Art, which focuses more on one-on-one PFPs, Fractal, which has its own kind of market style, and OpenSea is obviously also on Solana. But the main one for creators is Metaplex, where it's really designed for users to be able to launch their own NFT set and get that like initial mint off the ground. And a lot of folks in those early days would run their own mints. They weren't using Magic Eden or anyone else as their kind of launch pad. My feeling, and this is coming from me just being like 4 years in crypto, and cryptos, I think, doesn't matter if it's NFTs or tokens or products, it's so launch oriented. There's this like, this is how like I think the industry is driven by these impulse events. Even the POS merge, right? The very technical thing. There's a date and anticipation, and kind of like everything's built up to that thing. I feel like if you put in the work and try to do it yourself, you'll learn a lot, and you'll become a better art, like a better distributor of your own art, right? You'll be a better spokesperson, a better salesperson, or whatever. You'll have that connection directly with the fans. So I highly recommend folks like put in the time and try something like Metaplex, where you run and host your own mints and stuff. And there's tools to like make it easier, like Holaplex is built on top of Metaplex for like self-hosting.
Sure. So another thing that's super interesting about Solana is about last year, actually July 2021, Solana announced a $5 million creator fund, which was in collaboration with Audius and Metaplex, two companies we brought up earlier. It's been a year. I wanted to do like a quick recap. If you have any pointers on that, like where are we right now with the deployment of the capital? On the website, it said there was a goal to get 1,000 creators on Solana. I feel like you guys achieved that well beyond your wildest dreams. But can you give me a little bit insight into the development of the fund?
Yeah, the fund was much more active in those early days. And like these were just like small grants to get folks like photographers and like small community grants. But as soon as the ball started rolling, just the number of applications, even people asking for those grants dropped off because people became self-serve, because Metaplex became so easy, and you saw Magic Eden and like these other marketplaces succeed to the point that artists like just put the two together. Okay, make art like for the community, and it goes to market. And like that's always been like a really awesome sign for any kind of grant framework that we've done, is when the grant becomes irrelevant and there's like just growth happening on its own. But if you are an artist and you're thinking about like there is some reason that you imagine you'd want a grant, please apply. Like it's still open.
Okay. All right. Good to know. I think another interesting thing about Solana is obviously the underlying network and infrastructure is arguably better tailored towards scalability currently, right? And I think for a lot of creators, they end up being starving artists. And a lot of people actually can't afford to mint NFTs on Ethereum, and it tends to be a major barrier. It's also a lot of the criticisms that many creators kind of bring to the network. Beyond, I guess, like transaction fees on Solana, why do you think Solana is better equipped to empower the next generation of creators?
It's been like, ridiculously energy efficient, like green from day one. So compared to proof of work networks, Solana is like 1 million times more energy efficient. You can think of one Solana transaction as like 3 Google searches. But even compared to proof of stake networks, like the EVM based ones, especially, because we've optimized this thing to the hilt, we're a bunch of Qualcomm nerds. It's like, I think by a factor of 10 to 100 more energy efficient than a lot of the proof of stake networks. So I'm pretty proud of that. I'm an engineer. I don't know if I could live with myself working on a proof of work chain for many reasons. One of those just because how inefficient it is. The other one is obviously like I also live in California and I see the environmental impact of climate change pretty obvious here.
Got it. You know, you brought up Qualcomm, and I think it's so interesting. You spent over 12 years at Qualcomm, and I'm curious how your time over there has kind of shaped your early insights into developing Solana.
Yeah, so cellular networks, those are some of the largest networks in the world. You know, there's like 5 billion people using LTE devices, and they are under constant attack from state vectors, like, you know, state funded attacks. And the kind of technical grit and like perseverance that it takes to launch these things is insane. And I got to learn from some of the best people in the world, like just getting really complicated code deployed to scale and solving really hard problems. So I'm pretty blessed to have worked there during that time, because that was really the time when we went from these like dinky flip phones, 2003. I don't know if folks remember Nokia like phones and like those LG ones, to the last device I was working on, like the last project was this like augmented reality supercomputer that was like in the palm of my hand. It's just, and that just took 10 years. So it's pretty crazy how quick technology can move.
So I want to get into the whole Web3 mobile side in a second, but last thing I want to sort of cover on the creator economy stuff is you brought up the not the analogy, but the kind of like the very blunt statement that Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, all these platforms, they make creators slaves to the platform. Creators are forced to create content, and then Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, all these platforms end up being these walled gardens of data, right? But in crypto, everything is transparent. Everything is open. The creator is the platform, right? Creators can never be shadow banned by a network, for example, right? I'm curious, with data being so open, so transparent, with every single collector comes a new set of data that creators can kind of tap into. How do you think about on-chain data from the point of view of a creator? Like, how should creators be using on-chain data to further build, further monetize, further own their creator economy? What does that look like?
I think so. There's like some obvious things that, like the art and the wallets that it's distributed in, those are your users, and you can track and like verify that, and you can start building plugins where users in Discord can actually verify that they own some of your art or part of this NFT collection. And using that data set, right, people have started forming DAOs where the community is coordinating what, like, the direction of the art or the story, or potentially funds if this art piece is collecting secondary income into the DAO and things like that. And that's a very different thing. That's never, I think it like reminds me of like 90s, 20s data like collectives where people were just like experimenting between like art and community, like all at the same time. It was very intermixed, and it's cool. Like we live in like a beautiful time where you can really just like think of crazy ideas and go try them. I think what's missing still, and I don't know if it's like really buildable or if it'll organically grow, is like ability for folks that are content creators to be able to kind of move quickly and easily move platforms where the content is distributed, but keep their subscriptions and keep that like fan base and kind of move them from one to the next. And like, I think most of the pieces are there, you know, the wallets that have your art, right? Mm-hmm. And you can effectively like redistribute. You can go, ideally in the world where Web3 is fully adopted, you should be able to go from like Spotify to YouTube to TikTok and bring all those folks together, right? And give them content directly through those, through that like network graph that's on chain. But we're not quite there yet. I think initially building the community and like figuring out like which folks want to participate in DAOs and stuff like that is a pretty easy way to get started.
Yeah, I think based off what you're saying right now is like, for example, before TikTok became a thing, the platform was Instagram. Like all the celebrities, all the influencers were on there. And then when TikTok became a thing, you started seeing like a shift of a new type of creator, right? And a lot of the Instagram creators that sort of had their following, their virality, they tried to come to Instagram. They didn't see as much success as those who initially stuck with TikTok, and they built those crazy audiences. But you have that issue of like cross-platform fan engagement, where I guess the blockchain is like the primitive, the opportunity to kind of enable that interoperability.
I think, like, I can't imagine any other place being able to build that besides blockchain. And I honestly think like these bigger firms like Instagram are open to this because at their heart, they're just stuck with the business model that they have in Web2, right? Like Web3 is just not mature enough for them to switch. I think at their heart, they still want to like build these awesome platforms for artists to connect, and like connect with their fans and like make awesome art. It's just the only way that they can money is through ads, and that
Right.
sucks, right? For that to change, we need to have like, I don't know, there's like maybe 10 million people globally that actively sign crypto transactions per month. Not just hold crypto, because that's like holding .com stocks in the 90s, but actually sign transactions. And that's just too small, right? It's a large enough number to where you can see folks try and build audiences and stuff and iterate and like be extremely successful. But it's not enough, I think, for like the Facebooks and like the Googles and TikToks of the world to really switch over yet.
What do you think the future of advertising looks like in Web3, considering that statement?
Well, I'm hoping it gets like, I think there's still a place where people want to like promote, like disseminate information that's useful about new products or new ideas or art or whatever. But I hope it's less based around stealing your data and more about like serving the needs of the users. And I think that switch will happen, but it really needs to come from behaviors of consumers changing. And the crypto consumers have totally different behaviors like than the Web2 ones. And as more people onboard to crypto, as more people start getting into like these NFT communities and like having fun there instead of Instagram or TikTok, then things will shift.
So my hot take, I guess, is because the blockchain is so open, you have so many additional data points that you can gather that you otherwise wouldn't have across these Web2 platforms. For example, a lot of that revolves around like financial data, right? So as a creator, you've never really been able to access and see the net worths of your top fans or your audience, right? You've never really been able to see what other music they listen to. In crypto, the more collectors you have, the more data points you unlock, the better experiences you can create for your community. You can see what other communities they're a part of, what other things they're collecting, how old is their wallet age, how much money do they have, and create customized experiences based off those data points and make more confident decisions based off that. I think there's a level of like transparency and like what's the word I'm looking for? Like on Facebook, like your entire identity is doxed, right?
Yep.
In crypto, you can still access that data, but have that level of privacy alongside with that.
Yeah, the goal with crypto, I think, is to give you optional pseudonymous identities that you can switch on and off at any time. And I think that comes from the fact that all the blockchain data is public, so developers have to minimize the amount they collect. And they never like force you to reuse the same ID or wallet or anything else, right? There's no like username password in any Web3 application. So it comes from this idea that the user is going to bring you whatever data they want to, and then you just deal with it as the application. You never try to like take more. And that allows the user and like wallets to implement privacy features. You should be able to switch identities and like totally disconnect between when you need to. So it's hard. It's just really hard to build these technologies with great UX.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping stuff that we're doing for like something like Saga at least shows an example of it, right? And like can move the space forward. But that's really, really tough. But I think you're like right. Like I think artists have if I don't know if the tools are there yet, but like I think if you're technically savvy, you can start building much better like models of like what else your fans are listening to and what other NFTs that that they have in their wallet and things like that.
Yeah. Speaking of Saga, let's dive into Web3 Mobile, okay? Part of why I wanted you to have on, first of all, congratulations on the introduction of Saga. It made incredible waves online. What were your initial like reactions seeing the community's reaction on a Web3 mobile phone?
I was really nervous. I think I I expected, I guess, that we would get, I don't know, fall flat on our face a bit, or that people wouldn't get it. And I was really pleasantly surprised that it wasn't just Solana people that are really happy, but I saw people across the entire industry, like we were on Bankless, and I think what that tells me is that everyone in crypto feels this frustration that the Apple and Google are not taking Web3 seriously at all. Like the Apple announcement, 12 years after, Bitcoin is 12 years old, they had 0 features for crypto. And the stuff that we're adding to the phone is really, really, it's technology that's really simple. Like when I was at Qualcomm, like 6 years ago, the tools to do this were already there. So specifically, we're storing and recovering the seed phrase inside a secure element on the device. So it kind of makes it more like a hardware device, but I don't want to compare it to something like Ledger. For cold storage, please use Ledger. But what that means if your seed phrase is in the secure element of the device is that your wallets no longer have to store your seed phrase. So as a user, you don't have to trust your wallet with the seed phrase. The wallet just asks the operating system, the wallet can never steal it. And that actually makes the wallet devs happy because they can innovate and build more stuff. We can now allow wallets to be in the tap to pay loop. Like when you go to NFC card at a shop, you should be able to bring up Phantom, and we should be able to make that environment so secure that we know that Phantom can't steal your funds, and like be able to process that transaction and should be able to pay for your coffee with whatever token you want. When you open a Web3 app, like right now there's a wallet connect button and you see 50 different wallets. Then you go to a different Web3 app and there's a wallet connect button. There's 50 different other wallets, right? That UX just goes away because the apps in that environment can basically get the public key that's represented by your seed phrase directly from the OS. It's almost automatically connected. And then when you need to sign, it's like the delightful Apple Pay experience, right? Just a little thing slides up, you hit tap the thumbprint and you're good to go. And it's secure and like simple and easy. And our bet here, and this is again, big risky bet, is that like this environment and a Web3 friendly app store in the hands of 50,000 people that are actually actively using this device, signing actively on a day-to-day basis, is a better distribution channel than the big app stores are for Web3 devs today because of the restrictions in the app stores. And those restrictions come from this like inability of those firms to embrace true digital ownership. Like when you buy a movie from Amazon and say buy to own, you don't actually own it. You're just renting it from Amazon forever. You can't sell it. You can't use it in a DAO, right? Like there's nothing you can do with it besides watch it over, stream it to yourself over and over. When you buy an NFT, you actually own it, right? You can use that NFT in DAOs. You can use it in other smart contracts. You can resell it. And because of that, like the business model of charging 30% flat or 20% flat on digital purchases doesn't work. There's no way Magic Eden can tack on $2,000 to a mobile user on a $10,000 NFT. They can't eat that cost themselves anyways, right? So it's just impossible for Web3 models to work inside and like the default app stores. So I think if we can prove that this works, my hope, like there's kind of two win cases here, right? Is one, to me, like I'll do a victory lap when somebody buys this phone because there's an application, like a Web3 app that they wanted so badly. And they're like,
Right.
screw it, I'm going to buy this, this phone because I want to use this app and it's awesome. That would be a victory lap. The other one is we succeed and there's enough growth to the point that Apple and Google decide, okay, we actually need to implement these features by default in our mobile applications. And then we cracked open Web3 for everyone. So
why don't you think Apple and Google are actually taking it seriously, considering all the excitement, all the potential innovation and existing innovation? Like, why aren't they waking up and making some noise themselves?
So I don't think it's out of malice or anything like that. It's simply because the number of people that actually actively use crypto, that sign transactions with applications on a monthly basis, is still really small. It's about 10 million on aggregate. A lot of people hold crypto, but holding it is not really using it. That's kind of the main problem. We have a lot of people that are like, the space is based on a lot of people that are really excited about like tokens and their price, but not about using the chain. So that needs to change, right? Like, we actually need users, like, and I think it's obvious to us in the last 12 months that all the main usage is coming from creator driven projects like art, like NFTs. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean that DeFi is not important. It's just, in my mind, I actually think that NFTs are DeFi under the hood. There's contracts there, there's DAOs, there's all the stuff that make up DeFi are still in NFTs, but NFTs are actually gaining some like consumer adoption. So that's the place to grow to the number of people with wallets, and that's the way to do it.
The attempt, though, to take crypto mobile is not a first. Like, over the years, we've seen HTC make early bets, Samsung do the same, but nothing really found like product market fit from what I see, at least. What mistakes do you think they made, and what do you envision doing differently for Saga?
So I think there's a lot of we might fail. Perfectly just coming out right there. I think what we're trying to do that's different is that make SMS a platform that is open source. There's other devs that contributing to it that can enable other networks. If there's people that want to add Ethereum to this, we'll definitely take that code, we'll get it audited. It'd be really silly for the Solana team to try to build an awesome Ethereum integration, but like, it is definitely the code is open. And I think making it a platform will allow us to get, I'm hoping the next HEC crypto phone is actually using SMS, and that level of standardization, having a constant, consistent experience for users and feature set and application store can get that network effect going. So that's the hope and the bet.
So what does a mobile dApp store really look like? Like, what are the take rates? Is it user owned?
Same thing, but no fees on digital purchases or transfers. That's the simple thing. I think in the future, the sustainable models should be based on basically a transaction rate, but sub 1%, like 0.5%, like what you'd expect out of like a normal credit card or whatever, or like debit card purchase. Not 30% on every. That's insane, right? It should be no different than like there's no reason why eBay doesn't have a 30% fee on physical purchases, but an NFT store does. And that just comes from, I think, this broken understanding of true digital ownership. But it'll change. I'm 100% sure of that.
I guess the last question I have about the phone is that you gotta accommodate all the selfie loving people and all the photographers, and
it's an awesome lot camera.
Of that. Okay, so that was my next question. Like, what is the camera quality actually like? What does that entail?
Yeah, it's a really high-end camera on the hardware side, so it can capture as much data and I think take as great pictures as Pixel. But I think there's differences in the Google camera app and the app on the phone, and I'm sure some stuff is going to be better, some stuff is going to be worse. But the hardware itself is awesome.
You should mint the first Solana selfie.
Yeah,
the first Solana phone selfie for an unlimited edition, free, just to get the community hyped on it. I think that'd be really cool. Another cool thing that you guys are doing that really makes you guys different from other networks is You now have IRL retail stores. You have the first one that just opened,
Yeah.
right? It's in New York.
Yep.
What's up with that? What's the vision
This
behind
was,
that?
an opportunistic thing. I think
Okay.
post-COVID retail space dropped in price like dramatically, and this opportunity came up, and Raj and I were just like trying to figure out, is this a very dumb idea? But like it also seemed like a like potentially could be fun and could like what we've seen like succeed really well is like hacker houses and like all these physical events that we do are like the heartbeat of the community and the network.
Yeah.
And those we do them like enough to the point that like the virtual hackathons get bigger and bigger because there's enough like glue at the physical layer, and it can't everything can't be virtual. People want to connect, they want to smell each other, drink a beer together, whatever, right? Coming out, right? Like all these things are really important, I think, for community building. So I think these stores are a way to really get a person that's never used crypto to get hands-on experience with like buying an NFT or like do like signing for their first transaction or setting up their seed phrase. And our hope is that like maybe it's not going to get 1 billion people, right, to use crypto,
Right.
but you got to start somewhere. And maybe those are the folks that tell their friends and get like the next, the ball rolling for the next generation.
I think it's such a fun way to create a low barrier to entry, like touch point for people to get engaged with crypto.
Yeah,
I think it's
totally.
also an elegant store. I think so. I read some features online. So it has Solana Pay that's accepted there. It has an NFT gallery. There's interactive installations of like visualizations of what's happening on the Solana blockchain in real time. There's a private booth for people to set up a Phantom wallet. People can also check out the new Solana. So like, there's all these like elements that allow someone to really connect intimately with the ecosystem. I think it's actually brilliant.
Thank you. It's also could fail, but like I think the point of the space is you got to try stuff. Like any entrepreneur, any artist knows that like you're gonna do 20 things before you find one that works really well. And it's the process of doing them is that you learn how to connect with your fan base and your users.
What did the mood board look like for designing a Solana store?
Honestly, so I just see the results for any designs afterwards. I'm like,
Okay.
I'm the engineer.
You're like, all right, the logo lights up. That's great.
And
Ship
I'm
it.
like, and then every time I'm like pleasantly surprised. I'm like, holy shit, this is better than I expected. So I've gotten really good to just completely trust Raj on like all the design stuff.
I think we've seen a lot of like retail related ATMs, like Bitcoin ATMs, crypto ATMs. I'm actually quite bullish on retail stores being a really powerful vehicle for mainstream crypto adoption. What does that really look like to you in the grand scheme of things? Like, do you imagine a store in every mall, a store in every neighborhood? Like, what does like a crypto retail really look like?
Honestly, I think this will go into waves where we will need more physical connections, maybe more stores, maybe more hacker houses, maybe more persistent. Like stores are like a good persistent base, but they could transform into like internet cafes or whatever, right? Weird stuff that we don't expect.
That'd be cool.
Until enough people on board, and then it'll kind of fall into history. Right? Like people forget about it, but like this initial bootstrapping phase, I think is going to be really kind of hard and interesting. And like, it's just, we're doing the stuff right now that doesn't scale and then trying to see and figure out where we can actually get the next wave of users.
Interesting. So what else? What other tactics have you guys tried that is on that same like mindset? Like, let's do stuff that doesn't scale to see what traction is like and then find ways to scale it. What are other things you've done?
Well, I mentioned the hacker houses a bunch, and this was
Right.
after we did,
Which
like,
I've been to, by the way. They're great. I really enjoyed them.
This was also like really counterintuitive. We did a bunch of hackathons prior to Breakpoint, and when we did Breakpoint, a bunch of the devs on their own set up a hacker house, and like they were just having a ton of fun, just like working and building together. during the whole conference. And we thought, like, what if we just like ran with it? Like, people seem to be really into getting together because we've all just been on lockdown for 2 years. There's probably a lot of pent up, like, just human connection out there. So we started
Smelling
doing
energy
them in like every city. And that was true. And like, what was really cool is that like every city is so different. You had very technical like stuff happening like in Prague in Eastern Europe or like London, but then super media focused like folks in LA, and like very business oriented people in New York and like very like DeFi trade people focused in Chicago. And each one of those cities is a different personality and pockets. And that was like, to me, really interesting to see how that's just different from city to city. And again, I don't know, like I doubt we can scale it to 50,000 devs or something getting onboarded through hacker houses. But I think right now it's really important to onboard the next 1,000. And this is where I think that can actually matter.
I want to transition like I guess more of like the ending part of our conversation to talk about the future of Solana. Okay. I'm curious, like what are some examples of things that can only be built on Solana that can't be built on Ethereum or any of the L2s on Ethereum or Flow, for example?
So right now, I mean, like the biggest examples are Serum, where the number of transactions per day that Serum is doing is larger than most of the networks combined. And that's because that's like a NASDAQ style exchange. Market makers send bids and asks and order and like cancels, and just the level of throughput necessary to maintain it, and the transaction prices to be so cheap that no other network comes close. And despite us being live for like, over 2.5 years now, I'm still surprised no one has been able to like demonstrate it again anywhere else. I think that'll probably change in the next 2 to 5 years, but it's not going to be in an EVM compatible or like Ethereum rollup style environment. So the kind of use cases that enables is, outside of this like kind of very boring finance thing, is that users that are Web3 users that are more consumer oriented, like folks that use, the web, they want a fast response time. They want cheap transactions. They want this stuff to almost be a feature, right, that like kind of goes away. You're not really as aware of it as you are of like when you're using Ethereum. And this is what it enables. Like people build like messaging apps and things like that. Like check out Dialect. You can literally just have a real-time conversation with people by using this like on-chain messaging primitives.
What about bottoms up? Like, what are the communities that are very unique to Solana's ecosystem that don't really exist anywhere else?
Our validator communities really like, these were folks that like drive into the middle of nowhere to set up data like boxes in data centers. It's a very like, chewing glass for them was like, this is where that whole motto chewing glass came from, is from the validator folks, because it's such a pain in the butt to do. But I think our devs are unique in a separate community from a lot of the Ethereum devs. A lot of that came from us using Rust and a different runtime. So there wasn't, we didn't have a run of people copying and pasting code from Ethereum. It was actually, you had to build everything from scratch. And that meant that this was an opportunity for devs to go and like be creative. They had a chance like in a open canvas, right, to like go build something unique, versus when you launch an EVM, like Ethereum compatible environment, all the stuff that's on Ethereum is copied over instantly. So you don't actually get a chance to like build a whole new community. And that's pretty unique. And similarly, I think there's not a ton of overlap between the NFT folks on Solana and Ethereum folks. There's some, but I think as all NFT enjoyers enjoy them anywhere. But it has been like pretty unique.
Got it. I guess a few more questions for you. Okay. I know Solana also established a pretty powerful grants program. I think my broader question is like, how do you think about building a sustainable developer ecosystem and like retaining people from the grants that are handed out?
So what I think is actually retaining folks is when they're able to get to like a MVP fundable like company stage. And the grants are there to kind of like reduce that like initial energy cost to go start working on something. Maybe there's like a big technology piece that needs to be unblocked first or things like that. But we see that like what's actually retaining people is that they go start building stuff. Maybe it comes from a grant. Some of them are like really small, just 5K, go like fix this bug. But that like inspires them to go build a product in a hackathon. And when they do that, they realize that they have something unique. People self-join and form teams in those hackathons. And before the hackathon is over, some of them get funding like instantly.
Yeah.
And like, that's been like a really surprising but really fast moving way for folks to like onboard.
So last couple questions. Okay. Number one is, where do you think creators should be spending their energy in the bear market?
I mean, it's kind of always, I would say practice your art, right? And focus on like deepening what you love, kind of follow your soul, so to speak. And I think if you do that and you're genuine, a community will form around it. And that's going to be the thing that like kind of carries you forward. With that in mind, I think I err on the side of shipping quickly, like ship fast, iterate. And that maybe, I don't know if that's a good advice for creators, but it's a really good advice for engineers. And I think maybe creators too.
I feel like creators are so emotionally attached to their creations that it's so hard to even release a song, let alone an album or an EP or a new piece of art.
The few folks that I know that are artists generate so many sketches and like different like versions of the same song. It's just like an unimaginable amount of content. And like, I think if you're building in crypto, like there's something to be said about being kind of open source about it and like letting people see how the process and how things are made. And that's been a really good bootstrapping process for just developers, like being really open with them from day one, like letting them see the mistakes that you're making.
So on that same question, okay, what are some of the things that you've been collecting that you love and adore? And follow on, like, how can we get Anatoly to be a collector? What does that look like?
I like, you see me switch my profile picture. Those are NFTs that I buy.
Solid.
So there's stuff that like pops up, and I do it. I don't have time to be in a mint, like early in a mint. So I'm always late to the party, but that's okay. Like I don't have like any thesis or anything like that. I just think that there's some things that pop up that have like captured that like culture moment or like captured that like the spell of the community or whatever. They did something really cool. And I'm like, okay, I got to go get that thing. And I don't know what's going to happen to it. Maybe like 30 years from now, it'll be on Christie's Anatoly's NFT collection.
Solid. Very solid. All right. Final question for you. Okay. If you were to build another blockchain now, would you rebuild Sol?
Oh my God, man. Raj and I like sometimes say never again. It's so much work. Yeah, I think like if I like so far the way like I look back and like I think about like did we make any wrong decisions and what I realized that like we just got lucky in a lot of the decisions that we made. Like we made them blind for the limited information that we had, but like we got so lucky with working on Rust and using that as a smart language. We got really lucky on making this a parallel environment and just like focusing on the low latency part. And we even got lucky with some of our mistakes that we made, like the fact that we didn't copy like the mempool fee market. We actually got to see what works and innovate there. So I guess, yeah, I would probably remake Sol, but try to do it faster, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Solid. Anatoly, this was great. Before I let you go, where can we find you? Where can we find more about Solana, the Web3 mobile scene, the new retail store.
Yeah,
Chill it away.
go to solanamobile.com. There's a bunch of stuff there. Pre-order the Saga phone. You can follow Solana's Twitter or myself, Yakovenko.
Amazing. Thank you so much. We'll have to do this again soon.
For sure. Thank you.